Could be a good day tomorrow for mortgage holders and those who want to become one, with the RBA expected to cut interest rates and the Victorian budget set to extend tax breaks for home buyers. Let's bring in Emily Rayner, property editor from view.com.au, and AMP Chief Economist Shane Oliver for their expert analysis. Emily, start with you. What should we expect from the RBA tomorrow? In election mode, the Treasurer predicted a possible double cut, 50 basis points. Is that possible?
It is possible. Some of the banks are predicting one of the banks, I should say, is predicting that particular rate cut, but most of the banks are predicting a 0.25 rate cut, which, equates to around $100 a month back in most mortgagees' pockets, which, at the time, right now, with the cost of living, anything that goes back in your pocket is a good thing.
Yeah, we'll take that. Shane, Donald Trump's trade war seems to have eased, we should say, for now. Does that dampen the prediction of more rate cuts to follow? Some banks were predicting 4 or 5.
That's right. If you go back a month or so ago, there were expectations of a 50-point cut tomorrow when the RBA meets, and 4 or 5 rate cuts. Those expectations have been dampened as the trade threat has receded a little bit. The trade threat is still there. We're still seeing tariffs going into the US being way above where they were last year, but it's not as onerous as it was going to be. And of course, the threat could come back again. So there's still an issue. And of course, at the same time, we've seen inflation in Australia come down to within target, and we've got very weak consumer spending. So all of those things point to a rate cut, but not as rapid or not as big as some had been expecting a month or so ago.
Shane, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Because while it's good news for homeowners, rate cuts, it's also bad news for the economy. It means that we're not doing as well as we should be.
Well, I guess on the one hand, we are doing well in terms of getting inflation down. At one point, we had inflation above 8%. Now we've got it back in the 2 to 3% range, whether you look at the headline inflation rate or the underlying measures of inflation. So that's good news. And the Reserve Bank, therefore, is able to take away those high interest rates to some degree. But by the same token, the economy does need a bit of help. We've seen very low economic growth over the last year or so. Consumer spending is still struggling. I guess on the other hand, though, we've still got very low unemployment, which means the Reserve Bank doesn't need to rush or to do these supersized cuts. So as you say, it is a bit of a balancing act.
Emily, back to you. Jacqueline Symes delivers her first budget tomorrow. Victoria, under a lot of pressure to deliver more homes. What do you think will be in it for home buyers?
I think what we can definitely see is that the stamp duty concessions are going to be continuing until October 2026. So, that's really good news for first home buyers, investors. It's opened up the doors to get on the property market for a lot of people. And I think it's really interesting because it also ties into the government's promise to build more houses and increase the stock, which has been a problem. Supply and demand has been a real issue within the housing market over the last, probably the last decade.
Shane, obviously Victoria's budget is a mess. That's probably kind to it. We're under threat of a credit rating downgrade. What needs to be done tomorrow? How dire do you expect it to be?
Well, the credit rating agencies have issued warnings to the Victorian government. Victoria already has the lowest credit rating across the Australian states at AA, whereas the federal government, for example, is rated AAA. And they've warned that there could be a further downgrade. What they want to see is a stabilisation of operating costs in Victoria, a stabilisation in debt, and also no further blowouts in costs associated with infrastructure projects like the suburban rail loop and other projects. So I think if the government can deliver on those things, then well and good. But it does seem to me like it's going to be a tough budget. Probably good news in there for families, but I think there's going to be some tough aspects in there as well.
Yeah, we're going to have to hang on to our hats, I think. Emily Rayner, Shane Oliver, good to see you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.